Biden and Vladimir Putin have held talks this morning as concern grows that Russia is preparing to invade Ukraine. The leaders spoke over the phone for just over an hour. Let's go live to Washington. Annalise Nielsen joins me. Annalise, President Biden warning his counterpart that if Russia were to invade, there would be decisive and swift responses.
And look, it's not that different from the language he's been using in the last few weeks, but what is significant is what's happening around this phone call. The fact that in the lead up to it, there was another reported increase of troops around the border, and the fact that the end of the Beijing Winter Olympics is drawing near, which has had so many concern that that's when Russia will decide to make its move. Russia, for its part, briefed out through officials on the condition of anonymity that there was business-like approach, as Joe Biden said, but they also said that Joe Biden's been driving this by causing hysteria on the American side. But from the American perspective, they've been warning their citizens that they need to get out now. It's the same as the United Kingdom, and with the increase of troops coming in, it does seem all the more likely there will be some kind of movement, even potentially in the next few days.
Annalise, we've just got some breaking news now from Marise Payne, our Foreign Minister, who says that all diplomatic staff will be withdrawn from Kyiv and that the government is temporarily suspending operations at the embassy there. So the advice to Australians has been to leave Ukraine. Now the last of the diplomatic staff also leaving. I guess that's in line with what we've seen internationally, Annalise, with more and more Western nations saying, quite simply, get out, it's too precarious.
And that's interesting because Australia was one of the earlier diplomatic missions of about 60 that ended up removing the support staff for embassies and the family members as well. And then that led to similar reactions from larger nations. And so this could be the start of movement on that front, and that does show that there is significant fear, not only that there could be an invasion, but it could move quickly up to the north. That's not a small area of land to cross, and you have to remember too, this is still winter temperatures in Ukraine, but that also helps with how they can approach, because they have access over frozen rivers to get some of their heavy machinery across, and that's another thing that's driving the timing of all this. And so this is a real make and break moment for this. And it seems like Putin's been very clear that unless there's some kind of concession towards how NATO approaches Russia, that he's going to go ahead with this. And this is going to be a huge test for Joe Biden as well. His leadership on this has been extremely compromised with how chaotic the withdrawal from Afghanistan was. And we can see that's why they've had such a broad approach to how they're handling this. They've really tried to be on the front foot with this. And then even notably that they've continued with their Asia push at the moment with Blinken, the Secretary Blinken travelling to Australia. That is all part of the same strategy to look like they are in control.
Yeah, the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, now in Fiji, as Annalise says, they're moving into this region for focus. But there was no doubt, Annalise, that Ukraine was also on the agenda as Secretary Blinken met with our Foreign Minister and the Foreign Ministers of Japan and India during the week.
And you have to look at this from a DC perspective. A big part of this approach wasn't just what they're saying to the world, it's what they're saying to each other back home, because the Biden administration is really under pressure. They haven't had any significant policy wins since Biden took office. They're staring down midterms with dismal polling. The one thing that they can agree on in Washington is everyone's scared of China and wants to do more. There's two really important pieces of legislation on the Hill right now about the trade sanctions with China, and the fact that there is a stalemate between a House version and the Senate version shows that there is still pressure from both sides. What's interesting, though, is the pressure is who can be tougher on China. So this is why it's a real win for them to do this, to go ahead and make this strategy. From the hawks I've been talking to in DC, they've said there's nothing really new about what they've announced with their Indo-Pacific approach, even having this strategy as a solidified strategy. What it does do is take all those different little approaches from all these different parts of the US government and try to have every oar in the boat pulling in the same direction. And that's where they want to make that really specific point. But that's where they also want the win on the international stage so that they can start using that momentum back here on Capitol Hill.
Annalise Nielsen live from Washington. Appreciate it. Talk to you during the week.